உலகெங்கும் தமிழரின் பிம்பம் உங்கள் டிவி.
Dear viewers, welcome to CrossRoads on TVI. I'm your host, Parthi Kandavil. Today's show will feature two interesting guests. First off, we'll have the opportunity to host Ahalya Kumaran, a leadership and career coach who helps ambitious professionals and entrepreneurs. Following Ahalya, we have Nitin Shun, who'll be sharing his work with CASA, or the Council of Agencies Serving South Asians, and their recently started donor drive. Welcome, Ahalya. Thank you for coming on CrossRoads.
You're welcome.
So the prompt for this show was, I found myself and a lot of others of my friends and colleagues, we find early February to be an interesting period in that a lot of us fall off our New Year resolutions. Yes. And we enter the February blahs.
Yes.
You're in a field, you provide services that help professionals reach their goals, and a lot of them are connected to our New Year's resolutions.
Yeah.
So what are the challenges you've seen and in terms of people falling off their resolutions and trying to stick to their vision for the year?
Oh gosh, well, I think pretty much anyone that comes up with a New Year's resolution usually falls off that bandwagon around, if they haven't already, in early January, then it always happens around this time. And like you said, you referenced the February blahs, and for anyone that doesn't know what that is, that's really just so many months of winter, and we're all lacking the vitamin D, and we're spending so much time indoors, or don't have too much to do, and then we just feel really down in general around this time of year. And on top of that, we're feeling guilty about, oh my gosh, I created these New Year's resolutions. I thought this was going to be the year, and I've fallen off the bandwagon again, right? I haven't followed through on those New Year's resolutions. And the number one reason I believe that people do that, and this is what I found in my own life back when I used to do New Year's resolutions, in my clients' lives, and all the people that I've worked with, it's really because when people are creating New Year's resolutions, they're coming from the wrong place. I believe that the number one reason why people don't get what they want is because they don't know what they really want. They don't know what they really want. So where we're creating New Year's resolutions from is, I should be doing this, right? It's like, well, I should lose this many pounds, or I should be this or doing that. And what people never really ask themselves is, but what do I really want? We know what society wants for us, or what our parents want for us, what all our friends have or say we should have, but we've never actually stopped to ask ourselves, what is it that I want for myself? If this were going to be the last year of my life, what would I want for it to look like? Who would I want to be? What would I want to do?
That's an interesting proposition, that many of us, we pursue goals or resolutions that we think that we need or want.
Yes.
But how do you draw that line, or sift through these varying ambitions or goals?
Yeah, so it's all in the questions. And that's the power of coaching. I mean, a great coach asks great questions. And I learned, when I first discovered coaching, what I loved about it is I realized I've been asking myself the wrong questions, which is why I had great answers, but to the wrong questions. And so if you ask yourself a question like, at the end of my life, at my funeral, no one wants to think about that, but sometimes thinking about that's really helpful actually in how we live today. At my funeral, what do I want other people to say about the contribution that I've made to the world? Or how do I want other people to describe me at my funeral? If that's what I want, how I want people to describe me, but then what do I need to be doing today? Who do I need to be today in order for people to describe me that way?
That's an interesting idea for someone, an individual, to look at their life goals and connecting it to something yearly, like a New Year's resolution. And what do you think that connection is between your lifelong vision or career idea, or your lifelong goals, and transposed to for 1 year?
Something very tactical or tangible in terms of a year, or this month, what do I need to do? So it's a great question. And it's the reason why people struggle with that is because we actually have goal setting backwards. And this is not something I've created. It's, it's kind of ancient wisdom, I guess. People think that when they have something, like my goal this year is to buy a new car, buy a house, whatever that is, or have something tangible, then I will be able to do something. Then I'll be able to give to charity. Then I'll be able to take care of my parents. Then I'll be able to do A, B, or C. Or when I have more money, then I'll be able to do A, B, or C, and then I'll be happy. Right? So they start with the have and then the do and the be. And really, goal setting should be completely the other way around. So it should start with be, who do I have to be right now? Not tomorrow, not next year, not in a month, but who do I have to be right now so that I can do A, B, and C, whatever actions that is, so that I can have this. So for example, so this is what I recommend to people. Instead of creating New Year's resolutions, first start with a theme for the year. And for anyone that's actually seen in my first Ahalya TV episode of the year, I talk about the theme. And what it is it's not a tangible outcome. It's a general guideline for how you want to live this year. And you get to decide what it is, and we all have our own answers within us if only we allowed them to surface. And so my theme, for example, my very first theme about 5 years ago was feel the fear and do it anyway. And so in that year, I did all sorts of things. That was the year that I left a consulting job, went on a leave of absence for 8 months to India to essentially find myself. And I came back and started to recreate my life from the ground up. That was the year I became a certified coach. It was such a big year for me. And last year, my theme was go big. And that's when I launched Ahalya TV. So, choose a theme that really resonates for you and is essentially pulling you forth into who you want to become and what you want your life to be about.
Okay, coming to the idea of switching the goals, like you said, instead of I want to have a car, I want to have a bigger house, you switch it into, okay, what do I need to be in order to gain that?
That's
so,
right.
So that would indicate like it's a set of values or characteristics we have to embody.
Got it.
So that a lot of people find that challenging. We feel sometimes as adults we're set in our ways, and so what's a strategy? And like say the goal is to sacrifice less recreational time to be more productive, whether it's starting a business or taking a course.
Right.
How would you
So then the question is, so what's the way of being that you have to be? So exactly what you said, you want to, what you really want is to be more productive. But why do you want to be more productive? Maybe somebody because they want to start a business.
To make money to buy the car. Right?
Okay, got it. To make money to buy the car.
The
Perfect.
Example,
Great example. So if that's what I want, so then is it being productive? Maybe that's what it is. I don't know if people are necessarily inspired by being productive. To me, I'm not inspired by that. If I thought to myself today I'm going to be productive, it's not really an inspiring thing for me. For some people it might be, but it could be. You know what? I know that in order for all of that to happen, and this is actually one of my ways of being for the year, and I recommend everyone have 1 to 3, is being bold. So I know that in order for me to achieve, say, a certain income in my business this year, or for that other person starting their business so they can make money to get that car, they know that they need to be bold. It's like we know, it's like you just feel that deep down somewhere. And so it's like, okay, so I need to be bold. So every morning you wake up and in every moment, like in this moment, as I'm talking to you, what can I share with you that's being bold? What can so that's how, it's a choice. Who do I need to be? We always know. So you choose that way, and then you find those opportunities moment by moment to be that way. And then things start to show up. You start to meet people, opportunities start to come your way that allow you to make the money so that you can buy the car.
It's an interesting concept. I mean, coming back to the idea that sometimes we can be conservative and set in our ways.
Yeah.
If you're being bold, I would assume it would require shedding some old ways of being and old circles or perhaps things that were drawing you back.
Absolutely.
But how do you overcome that fear of loss and that fear of change, maybe?
That's a great question. There's so much literature out there on overcoming fear, and the one way that the only way that I've found works for me, and the way that I've found and witnessed working for my clients, is to literally face that fear head on. The only way fear is, what do they say? I think it's false expectations appearing real. F-E-A-R, false expectations appearing real. It's not actually real. Things haven't even happened yet we're afraid of it. And so the only way to really overcome that is to run right directly at it. Just like they say, you have a line in front of you, what do? You run towards it. Don't run away from it, run towards it. And so it's the same way with fear. So if you're afraid of asking someone on a date, Valentine's Day is coming up, or if you're afraid of asking your boss to be on that project, the only way to overcome that fear, in my experience, is to literally just do it. Just go for it.
In that realm, some people suggest that having friends support you through that objective or resolution. However, some might argue that it may hinder the process by becoming crutches. What's your view on that? Should any transformation or goal-oriented process be individualized or with the support of friends or family?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So it has to start from within you, right? The reason why it doesn't work most of the time is because it starts from elsewhere. We choose the goals based on other people's expectations. And then we might try and achieve it on our own because we want to prove something to people, or we want to do it on our own, and whatever that is. I've encountered a lot of people that feel like they can't ask for help or ask for opportunities when they really want to achieve a certain goal. So it's really about starting from within, asking those really important questions, right? What's really important to me? What do I want my life to be about? What's, the number one regret of the dying is I wish I had lived a life more authentic, true to myself. And so, so what's a life living true to myself? Starting from within, setting that goal, and then absolutely the fastest and easiest way to achieve any goal is to rally the support of other people. Rally the support of people who get it, because not everyone is going to get it, and not everyone is going to be on your side. And those are the last people you need to, because it's already hard. You're setting a goal that you're already pushing yourself towards something new and different and change, and you're facing all sorts of fears. The last thing you need is for somebody to say, "Oh, Parthy, you really think you're going to achieve that in 6 months?" Or, "Oh man, I know 5 people that have tried that and they've just failed." That's the last thing you need to hear. So really, that's where it takes a lot of discipline, a lot of courage, is to surround yourself by the people that will support you, and to be able to hear all the other voices, including your own, and just tell them to go play with the crayons, while you go towards your dreams and goals.
Recently on Facebook, or at least on my news feed, I see, especially in the month of January, a lot of people sharing, itemized lists on how to be better for the year. One thing I found interesting that popped up in a lot of these articles was having the ability to say no, whether it's to projects, activities, friendships, whatever it is. Having the ability to say no. How does one develop that skill or ability to say no to whatever it is?
Great question. I had to learn this the hard way when I was earlier on in my career. And, the number one reason we don't say no is, again, it's a fear. It's a fear that if I say no, then this person's not going to like me. If I say no, then this opportunity may never come up again. If I say no, I might miss out on something. It's some sort of a fear, right? And so one way is to actually acknowledge that, to say, you know what, Parthy, if I can't make it to come on to CrossRoads this Sunday, can I come on in the future? I mean, that's actually what I did, right? I couldn't make it a few weeks ago, and so we found another date. So in the past, I may not have said no because I thought, oh my goodness, this is a great opportunity. I don't want to miss it. And so now I'm over inundating myself with too much, and I have too much on the go. I'm overwhelmed. But now I've learned, and that's what I encourage people to know, is identify, why am I not saying no? What's the fear? And then to acknowledge the fear with that person. If I don't come out with you on Friday night to that party, is it okay? Can we meet up another time? Or I don't want you to take this personally. It's because I have this other priority. So that's one way.
You think it's important to put it out there why you're saying no?
To acknowledge it. To acknowledge it. Just like, actually, it's the same as when you're going into an interview, just to acknowledge, you know what, I'm really nervous right now. And just to say it to the interviewer, it actually calms you down. And then it just just has you relate to that interviewer in a much better way. So very similarly, just to tell the person that you're struggling to say no to, you know, I want to come with you, I don't really want to say no, but this is what's going on for me. That's certainly one way to do it. And another way is just to, what I found, when you know what's really important to you, when you're so clear on your priorities and your values, then saying no doesn't become actually so difficult. So I'd say the other strategy is to get really, really clear on what's important to you.
Thank you, Halia. It's time for a short break, dear viewers. Please join us in this conversation as we discuss self-confidence when we come back from these short announcements. Welcome back, dear viewers. On our show today, we are joined with Halia Kumaran, a professional coach who's sharing her strategies to help us stick to our vision for this year and achieve our goals. Halia, you know, we ended off the previous segment on the ability to, and strategies to identify our vision. Going forward, a lot of people find beyond just vision and goals, a lot of people struggle with self-confidence and building self-confidence. What have you observed in terms of common challenges and obstacles people face?
Oh gosh, you know, self-confidence is, I find, actually probably the number one challenge that gets in the way of people actually having the life that they want. It's that they don't have the clarity of what they want because they don't have the confidence in themselves to believe that they actually deserve it. So they get in their own way of that clarity arising for themselves. You know, I find comments on YouTube all the time on my videos and on my website, and I get emails all the time, and I find underneath all of it is the lack of self-confidence. And it's actually, it actually pains me when I see the comments, because people say, well, you know, I don't know, you say that everyone has an inner Oli, right? So I often talk about this, everyone has a unique light within them that I believe that can transform the world, and only they can transform the world in that way. And people will say, well, I don't know, do I have an inner Oli? Do I really have strengths or talents? I think other people do, but I'm not sure if I do. And I just think absolutely every single person does. So the challenge is people don't have self-confidence. Why they don't have self-confidence? Because, you know, one person somewhere along the way told us that we did something wrong, and now we're just carrying that into our life. And it was something that happened when we were 6 years old or 10 years old, and then we just made up a story about it, and now we're in our 30s and we're still living that way. And so, you know, one of the ways to actually overcome self-confidence, or really, again, face it, is to start to ask yourself, you know, what are the stories I'm telling in my head? Oh, you know what? When I was in grade 5, I did this speaking thing in front of the class, and people laughed at me because I forgot what I was supposed to say. And ever since then, I've been afraid to speak up in meetings. I've been afraid to do this, or, you know, A, B, or C. And when you can just see, wow, that was in grade 5. I'm now 35, and I've been living my life based on this one incident. So it's just to see that incident. You can once you see it, once you have that awareness, you know, they say awareness is the first step. Once you can see that it was just an incident, and now you've been living your entire life as if that incident's going to happen again, you can actually, the power that it has loses, you know, it loses its power on you, and you can actually just do that thing that you've been so afraid of doing.
Are there practical things that someone can do to build confidence?
Practical things, absolutely. So very specifically, if you, for example, let's take public speaking, because it actually happens to be the number one fear before death even. People are more afraid of public speaking. So a practical thing, if you're afraid of public speaking, look for opportunities to do it. Look for opportunities. Doesn't have to be like, I'm going to do a speech in front of 500 people tomorrow, but look for an opportunity tomorrow at a party, maybe at a friend's birthday party where there are 5 people, to say something to all 5 of those people. Like, look for those small opportunities. They're everywhere around us. Go to a class. Like, we think we're in our heads so much, and it stops us from taking action. And the key to overcoming any kind of fear, because that's really what's getting in the way of confidence, is to really take action. Any little bit of action, just take it immediately. Whatever action you know to take, just take it.
In terms of planning for the year,
Yeah.
I've seen people suggest a schedule
Yes.
in order to track your progress on
Yes.
achieving goals.
Yeah.
On a very practical level, how does that look like? Is it a piece of paper, or what is it?
That's a great question. For me, it looks like a few different things, and I have some clients, depending on kind of your style, it could work a few different ways. So if people are like me, and they have more of a visual way of learning and taking in information, then a vision board is a great way. And I'm not sure if you're
What exactly
familiar
is
with
that?
vision
Yeah.
boards. So vision board is essentially something that you can see. It's, you put it in your bedroom, you put it in your office, you put it somewhere where you're literally looking at it every day, and it can be a poster board, it can be on your computer. For me, it's actually on my phone wallpaper as well as my laptop wallpaper, and it's a bunch of pictures that represent my goals for the year. So, and it includes everything. It includes where I want to live this year, how I want my abs to look this year, to things like how much money I want in my bank account, to the kind of impact I want to have, to the kinds of people I want in my life this year. I've actually got pictures of people who are not in my life right now, like Richard Branson. He doesn't even know I exist right now, but he's on my vision board. And I'm taking whatever action I know to take in order to get that one step closer to, say, Richard Branson, right? So it's a visual, for me, it's a visual reminder every day of my goals, and then it's that cue to look for those opportunities on a daily basis to take that next action that I know to take. So that's one, if you're a visual person. If you're somebody that's a lot more methodical, say, I've got a friend, I think about him right now, he's an engineer, he's very methodical, he's got lists and he's got charts and all of that. Definitely create something in Excel, create a Gantt chart, whatever is going to work for you. Break it down into 12 months and say, if this is what I want to achieve in 12 months, what do I have to achieve every month? Divide it by 12, right? And then if I need to do that this month, then now divide February by, how many weeks we have, and what do I have to do this week? That works for some people. For me, that's a little overwhelming, and it feels really rigid. I kind of need a little bit more flow and more creativity in my goal, achieving process. But for other people, it doesn't work like that. So what I recommend is actually knowing yourself and knowing what's worked for you. Think back to when you were in school and when you did the best, how did you study for those exams, or how did you achieve whatever small or big goals you've achieved? How did you do that? We've all done it at some point in our life. Go back to what's worked for you.
As our final question, many people find dealing with frustrations the biggest issue, and specifically in the context of a professional office environment, when somebody's looking to move up and they're not finding, and they're finding frustration dealing with colleagues or with their their employer or their boss. How do you deal with that from a vision perspective in terms of achieving your goals and these frustrations coming about?
So people might not like this answer because, of course, we want to think that, it's their problem. How do I change my boss? How do I make them be different? And the reality is that whatever you've created, whatever is around you, somehow you've had a part to play in that. So I think the first, I know that the first thing to do is for you to just accept, I've had some role to play in this relationship that's not working with my boss, in the fact that my boss isn't thinking of me for this project or for that promotion, and to say to yourself, what may I not be doing? And actually, more importantly, kind of coming full circle, Parthi, is who am I not being in order for me to have this relationship with my boss, or in order for me to be considered for this promotion? And to start with being. Yeah.
Thank you, Halia. I really appreciate you finding the time to come on.
You're so
just
welcome.
before we wrap up for our break, can you please tell us about your website? Or
Yeah, sure. Well, I actually just wanted to let everyone know that very late last night, I thought I really wanted to offer something very special for you. So I've created a free career test. It's actually like a little quiz, and it'll take you less than 5 minutes to do. And in that quiz, within 5 minutes, you will be able to tell, and this is what I work with professionals and entrepreneurs to do, you will be able to tell if you're on track this year so that you can do what you love and make money and make a difference. So if you want to do that quiz, it's going to take you 5 minutes to do. Go to ahaliakumran.com / or / whichever slash it is, Crossroads. So ahaliakumran.com / Crossroads, and I believe the link is on the screen.
Thank you, Ahalia. Dear viewers, please join us after this quick break. Welcome back, dear viewers. Now on Crossroads, we're joined with Nitin Chand, who's leading a very important donor drive within our community. The organ donor drive is something that's recently been initiated within our community. Yeah. Can you tell us about it?
Definitely. I mean, organ donation, there's a chronic shortage of organs in our province. Every 3 days we lose one life because of lack of the appropriate organ to donate, or transplant. CASA, which is an umbrella organization of South Asians, we are running this campaign within the South Asian communities, particularly targeting three language groups, Tamil, Hindi and Punjabi language groups, mostly Hindu and Sikh faith communities, as a pilot project to try to increase the registration for organ donation. This is not during life organ donation, but after life. So you just register yourself now, but whenever the circumstances come, if you're passing away in a position to donate, so not everybody who dies and who is registered get to donate a certain percentage, if depending on the circumstances, will donate. So we have about 1,500 people who are waiting for organs today, as of about 1,500 people. And the shortage is such that in every 3 days we are losing one person, right? So the more people are registered, more likely that we would come to a place where we are actually, the demand and supply, to make it into an economic terms, matches, so that we don't have to lose lives.
What are examples of the more well-known or the organs that are in greater demand?
The biggest requirement is for kidney. That's the because then you can also donate other organs like lungs, heart, and so on. And you can donate tissues as well. So a person could actually technically save up to 8 lives. If it all happens in the perfect way. If I have registered to donate, and if I'm passing away, and if my body is in a condition that my organs could be donated at that point of time, depending on what kind of death I'm having, I can save up to 8 lives, and I can enhance lives of about 75 people through my tissue donation. So it's a massive way in which we can actually make sure our legacy stays on after we live, because obviously we have a purpose in this world to fulfill while we are alive, but this is the way in which we can actually make sure that we are leaving something behind for the people who are still in this planet.
What's the response been like in our community in terms of donating an organ after death?
Well, I think the general fear is talking about death, right? It's not about the organ donation part. It's the conversation about death, right? That is probably the biggest. I mean, most religions fundamentally support saving somebody else's life. And that too, when you're passing away, you don't say your body leaves, your soul leaves. So your body is, you say your body goes to the soil or to the fire or something like that, right? So most religions on fundamental basis support that. So it's mostly, there's some myths about whether it would delay a funeral or whether can you have an open casket. Those are all false, problems that we've think about. We can have an open casket if we want. We can actually have the funeral on the time that we would or need it to have. So those things are fine. It's just having, we find that a survey has found 85% of the population are supportive, but only 24% in Ontario have it's not Tamil community, it's Ontario-wide supported, right? If you look at statistics across the province, places like Sudbury, Kingston, Hamilton have higher percentage, close to 40
of donors
of the population, and GTA has 15%, and places like Markham has 11, 14%, and so on, right? So the GTA, where there's a lot of diverse communities, particularly, it's not blaming the diverse communities, it's that we have not have a generations of donors, right? Because we are new generations. So if we have been in this country for longer, we would know that our parents don't.
And the education is not there, and
right?
why we're doing.
So that's what the campaign is about. So it's in the early stages. There's been a lot of positive feedback from our media, from our organization. A lot of young people have have come on to volunteer with the campaign. So it's very positive. It's very useful for us to do this campaign in our community as a way to give back.
So if a person signs up to be a donor, and upon death, when are the organs harvested or taken?
So it would be a conversation between. So just because you've registered to donate doesn't mean you would be. We won't talk to the family, not me. The people who are in charge of the Trillium Gift of Life and the hospitals will talk to the family at a stage where the person has passed away or close to passing away at the end stages of life or brain death, or at that stages the conversation will happen. When a dear one has signed the card or signed the registration, now it's the registrations of a card. Most families say yes because they want to respect the choice of the person who is passing away. So at that point is when after the person has physically died is when and it's done with complete respect for human beings as it is in life person, right?
And like you mentioned earlier, they're able to complete it in time for the viewing?
For the viewing, yeah. Okay. And that's a negotiation that the family can have. And again, the organs donations also, there's a number of organs you can donate. You can just donate one organ. It's up to the person who's signing up, right?
What are the organs that are available to be donated? Which ones are
there? Are a number of them. Heart, you can donate kidney, you can donate lungs, you can donate small bowel. Parts, pancreas, liver, those are the main organs that are generally donated. Tissues-wise, eye tissue, there are various parts of the body tissues. You can actually save somebody else, enhance somebody else's lives who's been a victim of fire through your donation of tissues and so on, skin tissues. So there's a variety of things. And when you go to register online, you can choose. The other thing is you can also withdraw anytime you feel your mind has changed or somebody else has come in your relationship who may not support or whatever may be the reason, right? But most of the time it's about we haven't had the chance to have this conversation, and that's probably why we haven't registered. Some people might not want to. That's their personal choice. But in most cases, this is not a regular conversation. It's not our dinner table or kitchen conversation, right?
Has there been any reluctance based on faith that they feel the body shouldn't be alterated in any way after? Is there any connection?
Their faith is interpreted. Just take Hinduism. It's interpreted in so millions of ways, right, by different people, right? So obviously there are scholars and schools that believe that organ donation is the right thing to do. There are a few that believe that that shouldn't be the case, right? But Hinduism has also been a very flexible lifestyle kind of religion as well, right, to a certain extent. So a lot of Tamils could relate to organ donations from prehistoric times, not prehistoric, historic times, ancient times, with various examples of donations and giving and so on. Muslim faith has a quick burial kind of a thing. They have to do the stuff. So, and Sikh faith is what predominantly we are working with Tamil and Sikh communities through CASA. They have been very supportive, and also they tie in their life experiences. People who are affected by war are more likely to understand the importance of
and the need for organ
and needs and stuff like that.
So if some of our viewers are watching would like to be a donor, what's the best way to become a donor and the easiest way?
Well, it's not 2 minutes. It takes 2 minutes to go online and register. We are proposing everybody to do it online. Every time you renew your health card or driver's license, you get that form. Whether if you're mailing it or if you're in their Service Canada Centre, you can register there. But when you go onto the website, it takes you to the Service Canada website where you can register. You can even check if you're already registered, if you have registered through the older version of those cards where you signed those cards and stuff like that. So it's important for us to use the online 2 minutes. Again, you can go anytime and change whatever you've registered for. We have a Tamil campaign site, which is beadonor.ca/Tamil, TAMIL. We have it same thing for the other communities as well, so each community can go, and we're going to put more information in the respective languages and cultural context in those websites, so they could go and register. So they could either do that or do it through their Service Canada interaction when they have to renew their card and so on.
Okay, and this initiative you've been leading is part of CASA, Council of Agencies Serving South Asians, which you're the executive director. Can you tell our viewers the purpose of this organization and how does it serve our community?
Definitely. I mean, we have South Asians, one of the largest, I think now the largest quote-unquote visible minorities in Canada. And we have our differences. We are not a homogeneous group. We are very heterogeneous. We different languages, different experiences, different cultural context, religious context. But for the outside world, we are still brown South Asian people. That's how we've been classified. So CASA is particularly not to essentialize our community, but to kind of do group advocacy.
Okay.
So all different South Asian communities can come together, show the power of numbers, show the power of connection, and advocate for immigration policies that are more reflective of our needs, advocate for against racism, against hate crime, against racial profiling, do intercultural, cross-cultural interaction between our communities so we are stronger together. Muslim community, Tamil, Sikh communities have gone through labels and stereotypes at various points. Family reunification struggles are similar. So our role is an advocacy organization. We are an umbrella organization. We have about 97 organizations as of now who are members. So we do collective advocacy. We don't do frontline work. We do collective advocacy, mostly with government and systems, school boards and so on.
You mentioned earlier that the South Asian label is very broad and it encompasses such diversity. Whereas when you look at the government's approach to other Asian communities, their organizations are set up as Chinese, Korean, Filipino, and there isn't a broad Asian term used. So do you feel that the term South Asian does justice to the diversity within the? I mean, is it actually productive in that sense? The use
I think
of that
that's
term?
why I explained what the context of our work is, right? I would hate to have a situation where everybody just hired to do South Asian youth outreach, South Asian women's outreach, as if that's a group, and you hire one brown person and think that brown person will understand all the other brown people, right? To do frontline work. So when it comes to frontline work, when it comes to sensitivity around some of those things, it has to be very specific, very targeted, and understanding the cultural differences. Even for a Tamil person from India and a Tamil person from Ulam, coming from a different context would be a difference. And a Muslim from Pakistan, Muslim from Kerala, same religion, but different language and different lived experience, right? So that is something we always fight. So caste, actually, whenever we do presentation, we actually break it down into how our systems are homogenizing us.
Okay.
So it's kind of we work against the term South Asian and in frontline service delivery, but we use our solidarity as colonized nations, which a lot of us still continue to carry legacies of colonial thoughts and so on, and as a group that's marginalized here, we think we need to work together. But we don't do it just with South Asian. We work with Chinese, Hispanic, and African Canadian Social Planning Council, similar to us. So when we need to scale it up to the next level, we work with other racialized communities. So it is one of those lobbying advocacy kind of tool rather than a cultural homogenizing process.
One of the CAS's mandates is anti-oppression work and fighting against discrimination. Now in 2014, times have changed and perhaps some things have stayed the same. How has racism and discrimination, how is it experienced now versus say 20 years ago?
I think it's become more difficult to fight it. It's not gone away. It manifests itself in different versions. If you take all the immigration policy changes in the last 4 or 5 years, you can see an underlying theme of racism. If you take, various school board related activities and so on, I think there's a better understanding of cultures as multicultural themes have emerged, and there's a better appreciation to celebrate somebody else, but there's still no recognition of historic disadvantage done to people, whether it's women or people of LGBTQ communities, whatever disadvantaged group, right? So those intersectional forms of oppression still continue to happen, but it's harder for us to name, harder for us to pinpoint and fight, because the onus now has come on a lot of the individuals to fight those systems, right? So,
and do you think that's best tackled through a political or a education or a social?
It's a combination of all, right? Combination of all. I think an education should not be just limited to a multicultural education. It should be an anti-racist education. People need to understand why poverty is so high within the black population today in Canada. Why higher number of dropouts in Portuguese communities, or why is the Somali youth highly now involved in drug trade? It's seen as more of a let's educate these youth and give them opportunities rather than looking at systemic issues of poverty and so on, right? So I think this is a bigger show topic. I don't want to do injustice to this, but I think there is education, there is hope. Obviously, Canada is doing much better than many other countries, and I'm happy that I'm able to be an elected rep and so on. But I always say this, when I came to Canada as a refugee youth, it took 10 years for me to become a school board trustee, and that is not a testament to meritocracy saying that if you work hard, you will succeed. That's not enough just for me to go out and say, if you work hard, you will become somebody. But what I usually also say is that those 10 years I had to work 4 times harder than a person of white background or a person with a lot of money. That means it's 4 40 years of my time. I'm almost ready to retire now. If you look at those 10 years as 40 years of my hard work, and it takes a toll on our health and so on, right?
Do you think second generation South Asians face or see racism and discrimination in a different way than their parents' generation?
Actually, they're more, my experience again, they're more questioning of racism than our parents' generation. Our parents' generation came from a place where race could be used to kill you, right? So they found opportunity here. They are thankful to this country that let them in. Our second generation is growing up in an education system where they're told that you're equal as anybody else. And when they do face that discrimination because of their name or because of their cultural background or because of what they choose to do of their background, then they are more challenging of the thing, right? This happened through our protest when we were not listened to, and young people were not, Tamil young people were not listened to. Sikh youth who are, who are taking back their roots in terms of wearing turbans and so on, facing discrimination, feel like, all these concepts that we've been taught are not completely real. I mean, there's progress, but not real.
There's some in the community who argue that, we've studied hard, we went through the university system, we've achieved good jobs in the white collar environment, and the argument is that that's testament that there isn't racism.
Well, if you look at statistically, I mean, you can't statistically you still have predominantly white, predominantly male decision making in corporate sector as well as in political sector or social service sector. You take any sectors, right? And there is progress happening, but it's like, do we get happy with incremental progress? And at certain point, what if something takes us back? Do we have to start all over again, right? So it's always good to have a vision for where we need to go. So I'm not saying our young people shouldn't be happy with where they are, but I think we as a community, have a lot longer way to go in terms of receiving and fighting for equity in this country. That's why the concept of equity comes. You can't treat everybody equally if they're not on the same level playing field. We might need to do additional resources, additional support, additional mentoring, coaching, so that we are at the same level at the outcome when the outcomes are measured.
And what are the future, plans for CASA in terms of that advocacy?
Well, we're continuing to add, immigration policies have been the biggest thing for us. Last 5-6 years, we've had a lot of measures taken through immigration policies. We do a lot of work on that. We are bringing together a lot of young people, the second generation young people, some of them probably even third generation in Canada, to bring them into helping us shape these policies. We say, we challenge the term integration in a way that we are not asking our people or racialized people or newcomers to fit into an already existing structure. We want them to be part in defining what that structure is. Because fitting into what already exists is assimilation. Telling people this is how you need to be so that you can succeed in Canada is not.
There were some recent changes or proposed changes to what it means to be a Canadian citizen now. What has been the reaction from organizations and advocacy groups representing immigrants?
We work closely with OCASI, Ontario Council of Agencies Serving Immigrants, and also we work closely with SALCO, South Asian Legal Clinic of Ontario. They both take the legal and the policy level advocacy on this. Definitely, they're on the surface, some of them may make sense, but underlying, if you deconstruct some of those policy changes, they're pretty much, the worst, we could call it racist, but at least marginalizing certain people's, ability to access becoming citizens. And this country has always been built by quote-unquote immigrants with the acknowledgement and solidarity with the Aboriginal communities that have been the original inhabitants, right? But the problem for us is now it's shifting into more of using people for economic growth of the country, not necessarily nation building, whether it's temporary foreign workers policies or whether it's these changes to immigration and the point system and all those other things. Language, again, the strict conditions on English proficiency and so on would actually make certain things difficult for some communities. It's important to learn the language, but language, how did English become the international language? What went through many centuries ago to, that needs to be recognized as well, so it doesn't become a burden for people.
And how do you think education can be used as a tool to create these important discourses and understandings of power and privilege?
I think let's talk, because of the limitation of let's talk within the Tamil community. I think we have, people have forgotten that they have come here as refugees and receive healthcare benefits. People have forgotten that it was the compassionate policies that helped us get our families reunited, right? all of a sudden, the accumulation of wealth within a certain segment of our communities have changed the way we think about who should be allowed in here and who should not be allowed in here, who should work for minimum wage and who shouldn't work for minimum wage, what should students do, whether students should pay fee, and So I think we need a team of young people to champion and change that narrative within our culture.
That's an interesting observation many in our community have faced, is that it's nearing 5 years since the end of the at least the armed conflict, and that our community has changed in that we're more focusing on some will argue superficial things, and our identity has changed. What are your thoughts on that?
You're going into another topic.
Another topic, but
well, I don't think this has to do with the 2009 thing. I think we as a community there is a bit of a fragmentation of rich and poor that's happening everywhere, which is also happening in our communities as well. But I think as community that has gone through a lot of these struggles, have struggled in minimum wage jobs, has struggled through immigration challenges and stuff like that, we have to be able to be thinking broadly about other communities. If a new wave of immigrants are coming from another country, we need to put that in the context of how we were facing that struggles. And we also need to, the other thing is we have to fight racism for our next generation, because the thing is, I might be okay with being unequally treated because I've faced a war and I find this opportunity much more needed. But for my son to grow up and feel like being treated differently because of his race, he would not be able to connect to why those contexts are happening, right? So if we accept something lower for us at this time, we are actually leaving behind young people something that they would not be able to cope with. So I'll wrap
Thank
up
you,
with that.
Neethan. It's always a pleasure to have you on
Thank
our
you.
show. Dear viewers, please join us next week. I'm your host, Parthi Kandaval. Have a good week.